Everybody else wants to sit here. They're all like, you guys can stand up and sing like they're doing it with me, right? You know it. You need to take a step forward. You don't need to make it so it looks like
Help with this a little bit. Shabbat Shalom. We knew we were going to be right on the fence of the chapel or the sanctuary. And it looks like we called it right by about 10, 15 people. But it's wonderful to have you here on this Shabbat. We have a lot of different visitors here. And before we share a few words of welcome, I want the first words of welcome to come from our president, Kaylee James, for the past year of FWIFTY, which is the Fort Worth Federation of Temple Youth. I'm not sure if people knew what that stood for, but that is Beth-El's youth group, and she is our president for a few more hours.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah? So...
Hi, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm so happy to I'm so happy to see all of y'all here. I just want to give a big shout out to the All Saints Episcopal School. It's really nice to see y'all here as well. I think it's going to be a great service. Yeah.
Thank you, Kaylee. It's great to have you here. We have a lot of different visitors and guests and people with us tonight for a lot of different reasons. First, I probably shouldn't be rude. I should probably introduce myself. You can't assume my name is Rabbi Brian Zimmerman. At least 15 or 20 people in the crowd tonight don't know me, but they know my wife. Their 9th grade Hebrew Bible teacher, Mimi Zimmerman. So we are really glad that the 9th grade Hebrew class is here to find out how Judaism has changed in the 3,500 years since the Hebrew Bible that they've been studying. And some of them are only of 2,000 years old, 2,500 years old, but since that time they're coming to see how our services have changed and evolved. I also want to welcome members of our 50 board and our 50 youth group. They have a sleepover. We call it a lock-in, although I think a shul-in's a little less threatening. But we do stay locked in the building tonight. I want to thank Caroline Sloter, who is not only on our board and leading all the music tonight, but just returned along with my daughter Molly from like a 4-day camp out. So look at all that energy. It's very impressive. If I was camping out for 4 days, I don't think I'd be here right now. So we're very appreciative. We have members of the board behind us, as well as Stephen Schwartz, who is just a member of our, not just a member of our religious school committee, a proud father, and thank you for volunteering tonight. And Louise Appleman, who was going to sit on the bima, but when she saw, I said, I'm happy over here. So also representing the temple, who's on the bima with us tonight. Our president, Jeff Katzer, wanted to be here, but his daughter is graduating from college, and that's a very good reason to miss services. So we wish him the best tonight. And so welcome. I'm not going to be saying much during the service. In fact, I plan to say almost nothing. So if you're a guest and you have questions, there are a group of wonderful students, many of our post-confirmands or almost confirmands, who can answer your questions about Judaism later as well as me. We have one other thing going on tonight, 2 things. We have a group of students, adult students, who have been studying with cantorial student Monica Odeski, who is almost Cantor Monica, who has been preparing them every Thursday for the whole year to learn to chant Torah. So even if you can read, that doesn't mean you know the notes that Jews have used to read the Torah correctly and chant it. And she has been teaching them. And by the way, if you're a guest, the notes aren't on the Torah. The notes are just in the books that help you prepare to read the Torah. So she has prepared them to read from the Torah, and they will be later tonight. And we have our guest scholar for the weekend. Just wave. Where are you? He might be in the restroom. It's okay. And maybe he's in the sanctuary. In any case, Jonathan Siger, who is the rabbi at Congregation Jewish Community North in Houston, just north of Houston in Spring, Texas, who is here with us tonight with our youth group and is here with us tomorrow morning. Prior to his time in rabbinical school, he was a student at the Second City School of Improvisation, not only in Chicago, not only studied with them, but also produced productions for them and worked in improv and has a group on the side. I'm always impressed with congregational rabbis who have something on the side, something called Holy Improv, in which he works with students and congregations to use improvisation to unlock the mysteries in the Midrash of Torah. So he'll be speaking a little bit with us tonight. He'll be doing some of that with our youth group at our sleepover. And tomorrow at 11:30, we have something in the mornings called Shabbat Out of the Box, in which we have a drum circle at 10:30. That's a little out of the box for us. And then at 11:30, he's going to be doing improv and working through, in a very fun, interactive way, this week's Torah portion. He said to me earlier, really? When he looked at this week's Torah portion, this is the one we're improv, but that's why we're putting him to the test. So good old Leviticus. So that's about all I'm saying tonight. Our service continues with Hine Ma Tov before we say Hine Ma Tov, how good it is to worship as brothers and sisters, all as one, we turn to each other, and in our own Hine Ma Tov way, we introduce ourselves and wish each other a Shabbat Shalom. Shalom. What?
It's nice to meet you.
Nice. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. All in your prayer book. This is good. This is a welcoming group. I like it. Also, we do stream our services, and we know that there are members who are either too ill to come or are out of town or just prefer to watch services in their shorts with their feet up. So whatever the case, we want to wish you Shabbat Shalom at home. If you're streaming this through our YouTube channel, page 128, and if your prayer book has 2 sets of page numbers, know that we're always referring to the one in brackets. For those of you who are guests to a Jewish service, it goes through a number of rubrics, from welcoming the Sabbath to praising God, to the central prayer section of our service, to the reading of the Torah. It is almost like a series of steps of ascension. And you will see in your prayer book on the far left and right corners the order of the prayers with the recent ones in bold. I'm sharing this all at the beginning because I'm not really talking during the rest of the service. So if you're a guest and this just looks like dozens of prayers, feel free to ask questions later. Our service continues. How good it is.
Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad. Tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad.
We turn to page 120, where you find the blessing over the lighting of Shabbat candles. We bring Shabbat in with light, and on this Shabbat we ask Robin Croft and her mom and sister, right, to help her with the lighting of candles. She has been one of our religious school teachers, getting up early on Sunday mornings while she studied at TCU. And now she's graduating and going to Austin. We're losing one of our best teachers. We wanted to hold her back, but my ties at TCU were not strong enough. So we're glad to have her here. You find the blessing for the candles on 120. We continue. How beautiful this Shabbat day. Maya Fehayom.
Maya Fehayom.
turn to page 127.
There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. But on Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace.
We continue with the Chatzi Kaddish, which is on page 144. Someone's jumping in. Page 144, as we make the bridge from welcoming Shabbat to praising God. 144.
Yitkada veyitkada shemei Rabba B'madi vrachirte v'amlich machute B'chayechon u'vyom hechon U'chayedechol Beit Yisrael Bagala Uvizman kariv V'meru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'alam Ulam Be'amaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'hishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yithaleh V'yithalal Shemei Dekudesha B'richu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Da'amiran be'alma V'mevru Amen.
We rise for the Baruch Hu. We turn to the next page.
Oh, sorry.
to Shema, and if you look inside your pamphlet, you'll find the words to our next prayer. Ooh, that's interesting.
All right.
That's weird.
No, it's roll into dark. Okay. Roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light, night becomes day, day turns to night.
We continue on page 151.
As you taught me Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
We remain standing for the Shema on the next page.
Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command you on this day shall be upon thy heart. Shall be upon thy heart. Thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, shall my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
I think this was mine originally. Should I take it? We turn to page 159. We read together before we join in Mi Chamocha. Sing the song of men and women, joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, in earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, a song of peace.
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nehedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilo rosei feleh, Nora tehilo rosei feleh. Malechutecha rahu banecha, Lokei hayam lifnei Moshe, Ze'elianu ve'amru, Ze'elianu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam ha'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam ha'ed. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la 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 la.
Thank you. Page 162, and there we find Vishamru as we sing together this wonderful jazzy tune.
Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat l'dorotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat l'dorotam berit olam. Beini, beini, uvein, uvein, b'nei Yisrael. Oti, 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 le'olam. Vishamru, vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat l'dorotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat l'dorotam berit olam. Kisheshet, kisheshet, yamim, yamim, asa Adonai et hashamayim, hashamayim, et ha'aretz. Vishamru, vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat l'dorotam berit לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת בי נפש, שבת בי נפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We continue with the center prayer section of our service. Before we turn to the Torah service, it will look to the guests like a lot of different prayers, but they make up one prayer section. And they begin together communally, praying for even knowing the words of prayer, recollecting God's covenant with our ancestors, moving through a prayer for strength. And then there's time for silent prayer. So after joining in the first few pages together, there will be a chance for you to continue silently in Hebrew, in English, standing, sitting, looking at the ceiling, looking at each other, looking out at the fountain of the garden, or just exhaling, taking time for the week. And then we will join together in a prayer for peace. So you'll have about 8 or 10 pages where you can read or reflect. But we begin standing on 164, and we begin together.
Saftai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha Adonai saftai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha Adonai saftai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Vekonei Hakol Vezocher Chasdei Avot v'imahot Umevi Gula Livnei Bnehem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Hozer Moshiach U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Abraham Bezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayeh HaKol Atah Rav L'Hoshia Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed Mechayeh HaKol B'Rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Rofech Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot Umido Melach Melech
Eini tu mechaye umatzmiach Yeshua Ne'eman atar lahachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh Kadoshim lecholim halelucha selah Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimroma, uyase shalom aleinu. Ose shalom bimroma, uyase Shalom aleinu, Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Shalom bimroma. Shalom bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Before we turn to the, I like that move. Before I Work on that. Before we turn to the service for the reading of Torah, Seder Kriyat Torah, first, thank you to 50, and there are more of them, and they're here, and they're great, and they're leading, and they're involved, and it's like one of the best parts of the job, and it's a pretty good job. But it is the time I get to spend with the youth group, and they have a great advisor, Lance Friedenson, and they have a lot of great teachers, and they have their parents, and I've only been there 2 years, so I can't take a lot of credit. But it is a great honor to be with them. They are amazing, and I get to be with them and during the best days of their week and the best times. I get only the good stuff. So it's amazing to be the rabbi of such an amazing youth group. We're going to be hearing from Rabbi Siger in a bit, but in a moment he's just going to get us thinking about this Torah portion. He's going to speak at length later, but I'm going to introduce him now for a moment, and I won't do it later. I introduced him a little before. I like two things. First of all, we have a good enough relationship that I wondered what his entrance would be, and it was off to the side. That was perfect. I'm thinking maybe you were sitting in the sanctuary, like, hey, where is everybody? In addition, I can do that because you should have seen what he pulled when I helped install him. So he's great. It's great to have him here with us. A couple quick things about him. I said a couple things earlier, but you were hiding in the closet. So, he is our lives. While we didn't really meet until we were rabbis, almost as if our lives. He was born in Boston. I didn't get there till college. He lived for a while. I guess you lived in the West Village. You told me. East Village, and I went to West Difference. I know. I lived uptown. I'm sorry, it's terrible. It's a shunda. I went to school at Elizabeth Irwin, a Little Red Schoolhouse, so we were formative moments. He went to Brandeis. I went to BU, not exactly the same time. There we were. And then the similarities end, because then he went and studied at the Second City in Chicago and put all that creative use to work. I made a couple Super 8 movies nobody wants to see. So there was a difference. You really got to put it to use. He's great. We got to know each other. Our paths, again, he became the Hillel Rabbi at University of Central Florida just as literally the same month that I was leaving Tampa to become the regional director for the Union for Reform Judaism Southwest. But then I had the very great honor of being there when he was installed at Jewish Community North in Spring, Texas. He was there with his friend, and the two of them have kind of a routine going. There was more stand-up than service, and I think I had kind of a thing I would deliver and personalize. It had a few jokes. This is what you said when rabbis were installed, and I figured out before I went up, cut all the jokes, just, tonight you're the straight guy. The two of them were going at it, and I thought, I'm just going to go up and say on behalf of the Union for Reform Judaism, you're a rabbi, welcome to Houston. It was great. So if I'm giving a little bit of a hard time, it's because he's really wonderful and funny. And I want to thank you for sitting in the front row, because except for the 50ites who had to, nobody sits in the front row. So the people who watch our services streamed at home, the only challenge to this wonderful chapel is that when you're watching at home, it looks like no one's here, because everybody's in the second row and back, and it looks like I'm praying with ghosts. So they're... it's wonderful to have you here. And as we prepare to read from the Torah, I'd like to ask him to come up and kind of prepare us for this week's Torah portion. There.
I had a little bit of a heads up. Doesn't make it any easier, but there was a heads up. Shabbat Shalom, whoa, there's a lot of people here. Okay. So that was fun. I was sitting in the rabbi's office putting some notes together for my remarks later, and I heard him start talking about me. And I said, well, I'm hearing voices, so it's a little unusual for me, not completely unheard of. And then I realized, well, everyone must be at services. This is going to be awkward. And I ran to the sanctuary and didn't see anybody. And then it was sort of like being back at HUC, where I'd walk in halfway through class, and so that was brought back fun memories for me. So I feel very much at home being the last person into something already underway, which is interesting because it has a lot to do with this week's Torah portion. And I know you're wondering, how is he going to pull this off? I don't have to pull this off because we have a wonderful commentator from the Middle Ages known as Abraham ibn Ezra. Avraham ibn Ezra, he is actually my favorite of the medieval commentators. And I'm going to get to him in just a moment. We find ourselves reading the portions, double portion this week, Bahar Bahukotai. I believe you'll be chanting from Bahar, which literally means on the mountain. And it opens with, and God spoke to Moses, Bahar Sinai, on Mount Sinai. Now immediately, for those of us that are really paying attention, that should shock us a little bit because we haven't been at Mount Sinai in several weeks. We've already moved on from the revelation at Sinai. We've built a tabernacle. There's been some significant distance and time that's passed. And yet we learn from that first opening line, the commentator Ibn Ezra points out to us that this portion, the laws that we're given at Mount Sinai, we're sort of flashing back in time. In this portion, we're going back in time. We're following a narrative. But now at this point, in this point of the reading, by the way, as it were, as though we almost forgot to mention, on Mount Sinai, these other laws were given. And I don't want to spoil it for anyone. I'll wait for the readers to read the text, and you'll learn what happened on Mount Sinai with the rest of us. But this gives us a very important insight, something that's known as a klal, a general rule in Jewish text, and specifically in Torah. And that rule is this. Ein mukdam u'me'ochar b'Torah. And we can all practice saying that because it's going to be a really fun thing for those of you, especially the Episcopalians among us, to go back and say, what'd you learn? We learned ein mukdam, let's hear it, ein mukdam, o me'ochar b'Torah. Perfect. And you can use this. You can say, well, you'll be in line somewhere at the HEB, and they'll say, wow, can you believe these milk prices? And you say, well, you know what they say, ein mukdam u'me'ochar b'Torah. It may not apply, but it's going to be really impressive. So let me tell you what it means. It means there's no before or after. There's no Torah is not linear. Torah is sort of non-Euclidean in that things in Torah are happening at the same time. In fact, we learn that things are happening all the time. The things that happened in the past are still happening. It's very neat. Apparently, Moses and our ancestors who are responsible for our holy text had a little bit of an insight into what Einstein would have come to just more recently, right? The idea of relativity. It depends on your viewpoint. But the stories about Abraham are happening right now. The stories about our descendants are happening right now. It's simply because we live within time, we can't see them the way God sees things. And we can't see things necessarily the way the Torah sees them. So it's very possible that we can be in multiple places at the same time. One of the great examples of this we learn is rather dramatic. But an example of this that's very popular with rabbis, probably because it's one of the first things we learn in rabbinical school in Jerusalem, is that when Abraham, our father, draws forth his knife, willing to sacrifice his son, as he draws his knife parries, I don't know if there are any fencers around, parries the blade of Pharaoh, who draws his sword to chase the Israelites who are running away in Egypt. And as our rabbis teach us, as Abraham draws his sword, he is knocking Pharaoh's sword away. Ein mukdam u'me'ochar b'Torah. So it should not concern us too much. The Torah seems, at first glance, to be not really sure where we are. It's not, my friends, that you might think, oh, they forgot to tell us this part, and they have to stick this back in here. No. Ein mukdam u'me'ochar b'Torah. And so with that in mind, we're now going to learn a little bit about agricultural laws and slavery, which is really wonderful source material for comedy, I can assure you. But with that in mind, because that really was the challenge, Rabbi Zimmerman had said, well, explain how you might mine it for comedy. And I said, I'd probably bring a scholar in residence in so I don't have to. It's not easy. But there actually is something that is, while not completely comedic, there is a turn. There is something that we might refer to as a turn in structuring a scene, where you think you're going in one direction, but in fact, it's circling around on you. And the example of that I think we find in this week's portion is there are a lot of laws that relate to the treatment of slaves. And we may think, and I would certainly be among those who think, this doesn't really apply to me. It hasn't really applied in at least 150 years. In Houston, maybe 125, but things get there later. That we don't have these concerns. We don't deal with laws of inheriting personnel or slavery or agricultural laws. Why would this apply to us? And why would I have to be concerned with how I'm supposed to treat people that are forced into bondage? But we learn at the end of the portion, and I'm pretty sure we're not reading that tonight, so I'm not spoiling this part, that at the end of this week's, or at the end of the section that we'll be reading from this evening, it's made very clear, because it's pointed out that God has chosen Israel to serve God. We are the servants. So when we're studying all these laws about how you're supposed to treat servants and why they're supposed to be given certain freedoms and liberties, it's in our own best interest, because in fact, we are the servants. We are the ones that are called to serve. And so it is in our own best interest to cultivate a culture and an approach to treating other human beings and people that we might think that we are in control of, when in fact, we are the ones who are ultimately destined to be controlled and serving a master that raises us up to something that transcends what otherwise might seem pedestrian or at worst irrelevant. So I'm going to save most of my forced speech upon you once we've locked the doors to the outside. Give them a few more minutes and turn it over to your Torah readers for the evening. Thank you. It is such a gift to be with you. Shabbat Shalom.
You look like you're getting the snap. See? See that? When you go back home and your kids say, "Oh, you're not cool anymore, Dad." You're like, "Yeah, I got the nifty snap." We turn to page 364. We're going to take the Torah out, and no pressure, but any niftyites who'd like to walk with us as we go through the congregation can. So we rise as we take the Torah from the ark. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah. Ki mitzion Torah. In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it. Havu godel Eloheinu tnu kavod. Wait, skipped a page. Sorry, that was not intentional. Baruch shenatan Torah. It's comedy Shabbat. Shen, don't go to Torah. Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu. There you go. Please be seated. All right, so Monica, welcome. And you worked very hard with this group on Thursdays and lots of other days. Monica does a lot of things in addition to being a student, teaching our 6th graders, tutoring some of our B'nai Mitzvah students, on and on and on. So I'm going to let you call up your group and, well, rolled again, but we'll find it. It's all good. There it is. It's all good. There's our Torah portion. As you heard, it's Bahar. What to add? Nothing. But we are going to call up the class of readers. And I'm going to let you, and then once they're ready to go, we're going to call up our seniors and our 50 board. We weren't sure if all of our seniors would make it, but they did make it. So two of the, that's a pretty good percentage. The rest are coming later. So to come up for the first Aliyah to the Torah. Now, answer it.
Before we do that, I just want to give you a quick little intro before you jump in. This group's been working since after the high holidays. First, we learned all the different trope symbols. Then, actually, just recently found out what our Torah portion was going to be. It's like, okay, we have this date free, so it's like, and got to it. So it's been a fascinating journey. Teaching adults is way different from teaching kids. They're much more concerned about what their voices sound like, and I can't sing, and there's all kinds of mishagats that we just say, don't worry about it. So we let that go. But it's been a great fun journey. On top of it, last week I wasn't here, so we didn't even meet, so they were on their own. And on top of it, I flew poor Eliza to Boston for my recital that was this morning. And we are totally jet-lagged, sleep-deprived, and you want to talk about nervous, and that's called singing Matovu, Jeff Klepper's, with Jeff Klepper at your recital. You look up and you think, oh no. So
wonderful. So we're gonna, you guys come on over here. I'll get out of the way. There's the prayer. Here's the portion. Here we go. We have our 50 board. They are our 50 board for a few more hours because then we have elections for our 50 board. This is the current one. And we also have our seniors. Hello, senior. Hello, senior. And you're here. And so I won't say more except to let you go ahead and lead us in the prayer of the blessing over Torah. Baruch Adonai Amorah, Baruch Adonai Amorah Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Amorah Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Vaydaber Adonai El Moshe. Oh, I'm not in the right place.
Is that the right place?
No.
Well, that's not going to work, is it? There you are.
There it is.
No, that's Sav.
Uh-oh.
What'd you do?
That's all right. I don't know. Let's take a second.
I do Albanese right
Mikra
now.
Kodesh.
We were just there. No.
This is when the little station ID would come on. We'll figure it out. We don't have it anymore. Give us a sec.
There's Sav.
Thought we had it, but it's Sav.
It's got to be then.
Okay. There's Bechuko time.
Oh.
No.
Bahar Sinai.
Don't worry. Regroup. You're good.
Oh, come on. Where did it go? It was here a second. It's in the it's like right around you.
Yeah.
All right. We'll get it. Take a moment amongst yourself. There's it's right here. No, where?
It's like...
It's the disappearing Bahar Sinai. That's not it.
It's not that.
Moshe. Here it is. But Bahar Sinai.
Oh.
This is the moment in the movie. I'm a little more jovial because John's here, but this is the moment we go, it was all planned this way, and you passed the test. God be with you. Okay, there we go. You're a good sport.
Vaydaber Adonai El Moshe Bahar Sinai Lemor Daber El Bnei Yisrael Ve'amarta Alehem Ki Tavo El Haaretz Asher Ani Noten Lahem v'shavta haaretz Shabbat l'Adonai. Sheish shanim tizra sadecha v'sheish shanim tizmor karmecha. This is the end. Asafta et tevuata.
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher lamanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu, baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
There we go.
Mishaberach avotinu v'imotinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yivarech, et kol ha'olah shel Torah, O God of our mothers and fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. Bless over those who have come up to the Torah. Watch over them, keep them strong from distress. Here's where I add a little. First, to those of you who are heading on your way to the excitement and great unknown of college, may God watch over you and protect you. Thank you for honoring us with Aliyah today. And I can really say that as you have both been leaders and models in the synagogue, may you shine a path where you go. This will always be one of your homes. You can always tap your feet or at least buy a plane ticket and come back. At the same time, we know that you're going to create new places and new homes, and we pray that God will watch over you and protect you just as God has done all the years leading to this moment. We are so proud of you here. And to our board that has been a model board and really a symbol to others, as you have seen tonight, we also pray that God will watch over you and keep you strong and continue to help you on your way. And because none of you are seniors, whether you are running or not running, we hope you will continue to be involved, and we hope you will continue to be models, and you hope we will continue to shine for other teens and young adults and adults of all ages and kids, and whether you're aides or whatever you do, to be models of Torah and models of Jewish life, and continue to be the inspiration that you are for this congregation. Our congregation is full of joy and life and light of Torah because you are in it. And we pray that God will continue to watch over you and give you energy and strength and joy and learning. Amen. Hopefully that prayer didn't stress you out, Adam. Okay, amen. Thank you, guys. And the next aliyah is from our Torah students who we hope this is just the beginning. This is like they thought the first Star Wars would be the last. This is the beginning. So you can always come back and read more. And there's a couple of you who haven't read yet, but I don't put too much pressure on you. But come on over and lead us in the aliyah for the Torah to celebrate this moment in your life. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
V'shana hashvit hashabbat shabbaton ye'aretz shabbat l'Adonai sadcha lo titzra v'karmecha lo tizmor et Sophia ki yitzircha lo tikzor Ve'et Tisrei Inve Nizirah Lo Tivzor Shanat Shabbaton Ye La'aretz V'haita Shabbat haaretz lachem le'ochla lecha help me ulachtecha ulamtecha amatecha decho ulshechircha Utovecha Hagarim Imach.
That's hard.
Wow.
That's a hard one. Okay, let's see where she left off.
Should be right around here somewhere.
No. It's probably right
here.
There. What do you start with?
Right here. Right here.
Imach, yeah.
And I get to follow a pitch perfect voice, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh well.
Go on.
V'livateka v'lehayaha asher beharzeka teyehakoho beharzeka. No. Teyehakoho.
There's no.
Teyehakoho le'ehakoho besavrataha lecha sheva shani shabtoho shanihim sheva shanihim sheva sha'anim ta'anim. Thank you. V'hayuhu lecha yamehi sheva shabtohot hashanim tesha v'savratom shana.
Well, scary, isn't it?
Yeah, you did it.
Yeah.
Why is my pitch perfect like that? Oh.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yasher Koch, has anybody here read from a Torah scroll in the company of a whole room before? Well, in that case, we join in the blessing to thanks God for bringing us to special occasions for the first time. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, God, who sustains us, keeps us alive, and brought us to this joyous season. And we add, may God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless each of you, ba'avur sha'alu lichvod ha'makom lichvod ha'torah, b'secher zeh hakadosh baruch hu yishmarehu, v'yatzu mikol tzara v'tzukah u'mikol nega u'machala, v'yishlach bracha v'hatzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yadehem, im kol Yisrael v'nomar. Amen. May God, who blessed our ancestors, watch over each of you, and may you merit health, rescue you from any trouble or distress or illness. May God bring you blessing and success as God did today. You've come and you've done this, and you have read in front of this whole room of people who are rooting you on, but we know it's not easy. And if you need any further evidence, I like to read and translate. So it's not just the reading, it's the getting the tune right, which is no easy thing, and following the notes. And you now do this as our people have for centuries. And you now stand with them, having read from the same Torah. And we pray that God will help you to rejoice in accomplishments from this day forward, just as you have stood on the mountain and done it here today. We ask God's blessing upon you from here and forward. Amen.
Amen. Did you want translation on that?
Would you? Yeah, tell our group what they said.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks to Safaria.org. The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when you enter the land that I assign to you, the land shall observe a Sabbath of the Lord. 6 years you may sow your field, and 6 years you may prune your vineyard and gather in the yield. But in the 7th year, the land shall have a Sabbath of complete rest. That's that Shabbat Shabbaton. A Sabbath of the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap the aftergrowth of your harvest or gather the grapes of your untrimmed vines. It shall be a year of complete rest for the land. But you may eat whatever the land during its Sabbath will produce, you, your male and female slaves, the hired and bound laborers who live with you, and your cattle and the beasts in your land may eat all its yield. You shall count off 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years, so that the period of 7 weeks of years gives you a total of 49 years. 49 years.
We'll leave that for now. You did such a good introduction. But thank you. And we're not going to congratulate Monica yet. I guess it's not official, but
it's not official.
Almost
but stick a fork in me. I'm done.
Stick a fork in you. You're ready to go. And thank you for what you do here. And of course, come back any week. Just let us know in advance. We'll find you a new portion. We have a whole year of them. No, thank you very much. We're going to, before we put the Torah away, join in a prayer on page 371. Our Torah reading always concludes with Mishaberach, a prayer for healing. And so we mention the names of Kelly Webb, Annette Dover, Charlotte Fiwas, Corinne Jacobson, Lita Marishak, Leslie Arnov, Roz Rosenthal, Stacy Lewis, Alan Lusky, Charlie Freed, Jeffrey Marks, Robert Klein, Patrick Cooney, Arthur Letterman, Susan Smith, Elliot Blumberg, Pauline Wittenberg, William Westerman, Ellen Mack, Rick Simon, Nikki Herreros, and if there are other names, as I look through toward your row, you can add those names for our Mishaberach prayer.
Very funny,
Mishaberach
prepare to put the Torah away, Saul will lift this up and does a great job of also showing those of you who've never seen a Torah what it looks like. V'zot HaTorah asher p'lem Moshe livnei b'nei Yisrael. You're good. Hi Adonai b'yad Moshe.
Ilem achazikim bavatom hecha me'ushar etz chaim. Ilem achazikim bavatom hecha me'ushar. Shalom, 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 shalom. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. Shalom, 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 shalom.
Please be seated. Rabbi Siger.
Apropos of nothing in particular, I believe I am responsible for the worst Torah reading ever attempted at the Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati. I'm still amazed that I'm let near a Torah. And I actually can do a decent job chanting, but I believe it was my fourth year there. I'm sharing this because I can relate to not only having trouble finding the place in the Torah, because that happens to me regularly. They have a mind of their own and they shift on you. But also, anyone that's read Torah will understand, and the three of you now, or four rather, I think know now even more so, that something can throw you, and it can really throw you, and suddenly it's like the letters are moving, and it's a whole thing. I attempted to lead an entire prayer service at the Hebrew Union College while I had the flu, and hadn't slept in several days anyway on top of the flu. And for some reason felt I was going to take it on, and I'm sure Rabbi Zimmerman can back me on this. You're supposed to get your friends to help you because then you practice doing different parts of a service, but I figured, you know what, I'll just take care of it all, except I couldn't really breathe very well, which made it difficult to stand up. By the time I got to the Torah service, I could barely stand, and at some point I think I was chanting Exodus to the tune of Farmer in the Dell. And then there was some like Grateful Dead tune that I worked in there. And then I think I was actually reciting my grandmother's recipe for rugelach. Meanwhile, Bonya Shore of blessed memory, who was the director of liturgical music, is like yelling at me on the side, off the side. He was in the music area. And I'm now arguing with Bonya Shore. Like, I'm doing the best I can. I've got like 103 fever. I forgot to mention, it was the same response. People got up and started leaving. But there was, this happened to be the week that everyone was there for placement. So it was the week that all the rabbis around the country were looking for their new hired rabbis. I was fortunately not being ordained that year, so I had another couple years to redeem myself, and I did get it together. So the Torah can be a difficult and cruel master, but it's incredibly rewarding, and it's not easy, and so you deserve all the pleasure that I hope you got out of it, and it will be only the first time. The point is, it does get better. It's like that hashtag video. Torah reading, it does get easier, but it's always somewhat tricky. And it's also tricky, in fact, to find meaning sometimes in Torah, as wonderful and as rich a document as it is. And I spoke about that a little bit beforehand. You might think, well, digging for treasure in talking about agricultural laws or later on, or other parts of Leviticus, it can be difficult. But our rabbis knew that you could play with the words and you could find ways to work with the Torah and even, if necessary, work around it a little bit to get to a deeper truth. I'm very fortunate that it starts with Bahar Sinai, because what I want to talk about tonight in introducing sort of why I'm here and some of the work that I do when I'm not doing the rabbi thing, as it were, is related to what happened at Mount Sinai. Now, at Mount Sinai, there is a very powerful thing takes place. The Israelites, when they're receiving the law, as it says, "Vayikach sefer habrit, vayikra ba'oznei ha'am, vayomru kol asher diber Adonai, na'aseh v'nishma." Moses takes the record of the covenant, and he read it aloud to the people, and this is from Exodus 24. "All that God has spoken, we will do and we will hear." We will do and we will. Na'aseh v'nishma. We shall do it and we will listen to it. Now that's backwards, one would think, right? Usually you hear something before you agree to doing it. Most people want to hear what you're being asked before you say, "I'll do it, whatever it is." That's a real kind of commitment, if you think about it. The kind of commitment you show someone, people you truly trust and love. Whatever it is, I'll do it. You could say, "I need you to do something for me." There are probably, honestly, very few people in any of our lives that we would say that for, but those people do exist. And here the Torah tells us and instructs us that that's the type of relationship that we are to have with God. What God asks of us, we shouldn't really even question. Whatever it's going to be, we're going to do. You had us at shalom, so to speak. So let me talk a little bit about why this applies to improvisation. I had my own little Shemitah year after college. Actually, it was more like 5 years. But I spent some time at Second City. I had done a lot of theater in college. Some of you may choose to do that. A lot of improvisation. And moved to Chicago and worked here and there in Chicago before I was hired to work at the Second City. I entered the Conservatory of Improvisation, which is their professional training ground for people that may, if they're lucky, go on to work as actors at the Second City. I did not do that, but I did work for them as an assistant producer, which really was a glorified coffee and gopher person, but ran the box office, helped out, worked on producing some children's theater projects. But I am very proud to stand before you and name drop, my dear friends. I can tell you with great pride that I have made coffee for some of the greatest working people in comedy today. I believe that I have made at least several very poor cups of coffee for Stephen Carell. Stephen Colbert worked on the box office at the same time I was there as a favor. He was already working for them as an actor. Tina Fey came after us, but was friends with a friend of mine. Adam McKay, who you may know is now The Big Short. Okay, I used to go see him perform improv shows in Chicago. It was a very close community. We remained friendly. A lot of people went on to continue to work in Hollywood and other areas. And some of us went on to become writers and journalists or rabbis because I was such a wonderful improviser. And actually, the truth of the matter is that I was good. I'm passable. I still hang with them. I can play. But there was always a passion in me for Judaism and for counseling and for Jewish life. In fact, one of my favorite stories about how did I end up a rabbi goes back to my Second City days. I was working in the box office for the producer at the time, a wonderful Jewish woman named Joyce Sloan of blessed memory. And I just thought that I was, of course, going to be hopefully maybe better behavior, but like the next John Belushi. Grew up on that. So I had this cool little fedora, that I wore, and I had the sunglasses, and I thought I looked like one of the Blues Brothers. Well, I walked in one day to do a box office shift, and Joyce said, "Congratulations, Rabbi." And I said, "What?" She said, "When did you become a rabbi?" She said, "You look like a rabbi." I said, I thought I looked like one of the Blues Brothers. She said, "No, you look like a rabbi." And I appeared. I said, so she must have known something that I didn't. I'll share you another story about Joyce Sloan, just for fun. My father had come to visit, and my father at that time looked a lot like John Forsythe, the actor at the time. Father's very handsome, a beautiful man, 6'2", silver hair, silver fox. It was great. That's right. They're like, well, how did you turn out like this? Exactly. All right, I take after my mother's side, but we're longer lived, so there. All right, now, Joyce Sloan had said to me after my father visited, she said, wow, your father, who was also an attorney, a corporate attorney in New York, named partner at a Wall Street firm, before he gave it up to become a novelist who lives in Greece. So, yeah, he's doing it right. But, I get to hang out in Fort Worth, so there. Which, when you're from Houston, is a big deal, as we know, right? So I'm not mocking it. Now, she said, your father he's so tall and good-looking and successful. That must be really hard for you. There was a saying about Second City, it is a family that eats its young. Now, there are many, many lessons that I learned, things that continue to inform me. And I will tell you something that's so wonderful about that particular community. A number of years ago, when I said, all of the things that we did in improvisational theater, all of those lessons, the things that we do to create immersive theatrical experiences apply to the work that we do in congregations. They apply to our intimate relationships, and they apply to the larger work that we do in synagogues. And they said, of course. I said, well, I know, but I'd like to do some of that. So they said, go ahead. I said, will you partner with me on that? And they said, yes, and yes. I said, what? It's amazing, right? Well, I mean, it makes sense, but they wouldn't have to, you would think, right? But that's how I started to do some of this work. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. And I'm actually going to work you guys through a little exercise. And it will be fine. No one has to stand up in here and pretend to make up songs on the fly, but I think you'll find this very, very interesting. And it comes back to that idea of na'aseh v'nishma. In fact, that idea, na'aseh v'nishma, that idea of agreement, of radical agreement, of accepting something before you even know what's going to happen, is central to the work that improvisers do, whether they're doing it for comic purposes or whether they're trying to do something a little bit more avant-garde, like improvising Shakespeare or improvising a dramatic one-act play. These are things that you can do with people that are skilled. You wouldn't try it out of the gate. It would be a disaster, but I'll come back to that in a moment. But it's all based on this idea of supporting each other, that when someone offers something, you accept it and you go with it. Everything is responded to with yes and. Yes, and. And this is tied to that idea that we read in Exodus. Na'aseh v'nishma. We'll do it and we will hear it. Whatever it is, we're going to go with it. First rule. Whatever it is, we're going to go with it. Now, how do we know that this is such an important teaching? Well, in the Talmud, we learn that at that moment, according to Rabbi Elazar, a heavenly voice called out, "Who taught these human beings the secret of the ministering angels?" What's that? Who revealed to my children this secret of the ministering angels? It seems the ministering angels of God are seen as spiritual creatures that carry out God's command. They don't question it. They're extensions of God's will. There's no filter between what an angel does and what God wills. That's a difference with human beings. I think we can all relate to that, right? There's always resistance. We have a built-in resistance. That's the idea of free will. But in a sense, the angels have no free will. And on some level, when you say na'aseh v'nishma, you are using your free will to give up your free will, in a sense. You're saying, I'm not going to question it. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to be part of God's creative process. The angels are prepared to perform God's mitzvot, but even before hearing what that command might be. And that becomes a model for someone who is called to be an agent of God. It has also been taught that we should pay attention to the fact that that command is given in the plural. The Israelites don't say, I will hear, e'aseh v'eshma, but rather, na'aseh v'nishma. We will do it. We will hear. Because in order to create improvisation in an ensemble, you could do it as an individual, but it is really a team effort. It is really based on interchange of ideas and building on the strengths of multiple people. It is something that is done in community. And by supporting each other, we create something that's greater than anything that any of us as individuals could put together. And that also applies very much to the corporate world, it applies to schools, it applies to sports teams, and it applies to synagogue work. The concept of yes and is also found in our rabbinic literature, where there's always lots of answers. And this, and that, and another thing, and another thing, and it's also taught, and it was also said, v'davar aher. This is also the famous source of the idea that 2 Jews, 3 opinions, right? There's always more. Yes, and. So I'm going to pause for a moment before I talk about 2 of the other important lessons that we can draw from the world of improvisation and even comedy and apply that to our own lives, not only in congregations, but also in our own relationships. But this one is big. So what I would like you to do, and we're going to do a little exercise, not too much exercise, but a little bit. And this is based on that idea of how powerful is that idea of yes and, creating that culture of na'aseh v'nishma. Turn to the person next to you, or if there's a group of 3, you can do in 3s, but just find someone sitting next to you. That's right. And the first decision is you're going to be planning a birthday party. Now, the person who's going to offer something, it doesn't matter who, but one of you is going to make a suggestion. Whatever that person suggests, the response you're going to give is the response that usually we get from our boards, which is no because. We're going to start with no because, okay? So take a couple minutes with your new friends or your old friends that you're sitting next to. Just try to plan a birthday party, but everything is no because. Okay, all right, I'm going to stop you there because sooner or later someone's going to get hurt. It's going to come to blows. All right, so now you can actually, I don't want to talk about it too much, but let's stop. Now we're going to trade places. So if you're the one making suggestions, now you don't have to make suggestions. Now it's your partner's turn to make the suggestions, but you're going to respond with yes, but. Yes, but. Now try it that way. Yes, but. Okay, all right, that's good. You just need to do a couple seconds of this. Mostly, we're able to get the idea within a few seconds of this. Okay, so we're all into it. Yeah, you're into it, which is good. Okay. We've done this before. But you'll notice, is anyone finding it a little frustrating, though? Yeah, it's a little frustrating, right? It keeps taking the wind out of your sails. Okay, now we're going to switch back. Switch partners again, or switch roles. But switch roles again. But this time, the response is yes and. Yes and. Now try it with everything is met with yes and. Try that one on. Yes and everything. Okay. Okay, so let's pause there. All right, let's stop with that. Boy, that was fun. Okay, now I promise you I may be slightly biased, but as a biased observer, but also as someone that's seen this done before in groups, the first time we do that exercise, the first time through, there's this low murmur, and it really is palpable. Even though it's just for fun, the frustration is inescapable, right? Even just for playing, it's frustrating, and the tone is in the room. It's like, and the next time we do it, it's yes, but it's sort of hopeful, but then your hopes are dashed. It's like, it's only a half yes. It's really, you don't really go. You're spinning your wheels, and it sort of sounds like that too. It's like, right. The third time, yes, and you can, I don't know, you may have been doing it, you were so immersed, you didn't notice it. The energy in the room changes. Suddenly it's more electric, it's more alive. There's this vibrancy to the work that's done. And one of the things that's so incredible about yes and is it doesn't mean you have to necessarily agree with the person. I'll give you a perfect example of this in the type of work we do. I would like to have a food truck festival at our synagogue. No, because there's no way. The insurance and the budget, there's no way we can do that. I know it's a great idea. You're so creative, Rabbi. It's great. I just don't see it happening. Oh, okay. We'll have bagels and Torah study. Sorry, right? Okay. As opposed to going, yes, and we can do it in such a way that we can make it fit into the budget. Right? You can yes and something and not necessarily just go crazy with it. But it changes the dynamic. You're then supporting someone. Just the idea of support. So the greatest challenge that a lot of creative companies face and synagogues face is how do you create a culture of yes and? You're creating inclusivity. People feel accepted. It breeds energy. It's a small thing. It seems like a very small thing, but it has huge ramifications, and it really is. It's one of those amazing insights that makes so much else possible, and it really is the root of improvisation at the heart of it. We call it the golden rule in improvisation is yes and. It's really the magic word. It makes everything possible. You're supporting someone's initiative, you're throwing yourself behind it, and you're going to build upon it. Discover, explore, and heighten together. And I'm convinced it translates very, very easily. It's also a great way to build relationships with friends and within your family because it requires you to be present and committed to the person. And I said 3 things. I'm going to narrow it down to 2 because we've got a jam-packed evening, and I think that I've subjected you to enough to my musings this evening. But the second piece of it is the idea of remaining present. And that's critical to the work of improvisation, and theater in general, if you're improvising as music. Those of you that like jazz music, the jazzy rendition of Vishamru, perfect example. When you are present, you are standing there. We stand at Sinai as Jews. We are present to serve God, being in the now, the here and now. Listening. The Shema is about being present, about listening, shutting down your other senses and just listening to the words that you're saying. Living. The secret to life is being present. The great ancient Chinese rabbi Lao Tzu, not a rabbi, but he probably would have gotten along well with us, has a wonderful teaching attributed to him that when we are focused on the future, we become anxious, and we find ourselves depressed when we get stuck in the past. But when we remain in the present, we are at peace. And so much of Judaism is about that. There's a great teaching that the bet in Bereshit is a reminder of that. You're not supposed to worry about what's above you or what's behind you or what's below you. We're supposed to live in that letter bet of Bereshit, looking forward, be what's in front of us, be present to what's happening. Our posture in prayer is an example of this. In the Talmud, but also in the Shulchan Aruch, it tells us how we should stand during prayer. And when we think of prayer, often we think of putting our hands together, right? That's very common in Western culture. But for Jews, you keep your hands free, because there might be rugelach. Secondly, I'll talk about the callback. That's the second mention of rugelach, right? Okay. So that's also, there are rules of comedy. We stand with our feet together, generally, right? We're close together, or we're told we should. Why do we do that? We don't kneel because your pants might get dirty and your mother will kill you, right? But we stand, right? You stand with your feet together because we're told the angels stand like that the angels' feet are, I don't know why they have feet, but they're described as having feet. They don't do anything, I don't know, they're not talking angels, but other than in the way that they stand. That your feet are together. When your feet are present, I'm not going anywhere. I'm planted. I'm firmly here before you, listening to you, focused on you. If I'm like this, it means apart. I'm ready to move. I can move, I can duck, I can weave, I can run. Even if my hands are together, I can still make a run for it. That's the most exercise I've had all week, by the way. I'm not proud of that fact. Now, but when your feet are together, I could get away, but it's, harder to get away. And so I'm probably better off just listening to what you have to say. The posture that we assume during our most intense prayer, standing before God, standing for the Elenu, if we do the drink, is when we are fully present and in the moment. We're nowhere but here. And we're actively relating. It's the same thing you need to do. To be a successful improviser, to create a scene out of nothing with a scene partner, you better be listening. You've got to be listening. You've got to be present for that person. Otherwise, you can't create anything. Now, that seems obvious to people, but it isn't. People come to rabbis and to counselors and teachers and, again, to rabbis for marriage counseling all the time. And one of the first things we teach them is how to actually listen, to actively listen to people rather than just wait for your turn to talk, which will kill any improvised scene either. Improvising isn't about being funny, even though humor comes out of it. Improvising is about being present and being truthful and being honest. And then, I guess I lied, I am going to share the third thing, and not being afraid to fail. Failure is your friend. It is one of the most important and one of the most difficult lessons to learn that improvisers have to learn. Comics in particular, but any performer, but I would say any human being that wants to be successful needs to learn to fail. And you don't have to like it necessarily, but you can learn to appreciate it. There is no growth without failure. There's no way to know that you've succeeded unless you've failed. And in fact, you can learn to actually relish in your failure. I promise you, again, I'm not entirely proud of it, but I open with that story about probably the worst service I've ever led. I mean, the most humiliated I had ever been in my adult life. And I've lost my pants on stage as a younger man. I mean, I've had my share of humiliations. But that morning at the Hebrew College Chapel, where I went down hard, I mean, I went down in flames. It was humiliating. But even in the midst of that, there was a sense of the internal person who had the improv experience said, well, I have totally misjudged what I was capable of doing this morning. Boy, this is a disaster. You didn't give up. I still gave it my every effort. But I said, well, I'm learning from this. And the best thing about it was I walked away from it. My life didn't end. I lived to lead another service. This is true. There may be we know one thing. We should not be afraid to fail. In each of our lives, there will be one unrecoverable failure. There will be one, but that's it. We're going to have many more failures that we walk away from and become stronger for having done it. So these are just three insights that come from something that might seem really kind of silly. Improv comedy, making people laugh. Something that's actually a distraction. But they actually apply to the most significant and important work that we can do. Whether it's relating to our friends and our spouses, building communities where we can help lift people up through some of the most difficult and unentertaining parts of their lives, and also help heal the world. The practices that became improv comedy, and I love coming back to this, the Ein Mukdam U'Me'achar B'Torah, going back to the very roots of improvisation. All of these laws, I wish they were the laws. You're going to jail, you didn't say yes and. Go back to a time in the early part of the 20th century when immigrants to Chicago were being helped at settlement houses by the mother of Viola Spolin, who wrote the Bible. It's actually not entirely jokingly referred to as the Bible of improvisation, theater games, to help new refugees and immigrants to America acculturate themselves, to find new confidence in expressing themselves in a new language, to be able to integrate into society through games that taught them to relate with each other and to play with each other, theater games. And doing that helped people become more comfortable expressing themselves, children and refugees. And this led, a few generations later, into the work of theater. But the roots of improvisation were social change. And in fact, the early days of Second City and the Compass Players, its predecessor, and that type of theater are based on the work of Bertolt Brecht, of all people, who saw theater and comedy as a way to make people think, to make social change. The goal of good comedy, is to make people laugh, but also make them think. Because the truth in comedy is that it's not just farce or slapstick. It's not simply watching me trip and fall flat on my face, which might be funny, except that I'm middle-aged. You would probably be more concerned for my health at that point. But rather, it's that we recognize truth, and where we recognize that something is not quite truthful, when things are turned on its head. Not something you would necessarily think about, but also part of that wonderful, amazing thing that just happens when you just go with life. So I've certainly enjoyed being able to weave in some of that kind of work with Torah study and Bible study, and taking these games, which we'll do this evening with the youth, and tomorrow, taking the Torah text and actually using it and looking at it in ways that we say, where can we find truth? Where can we find ways to improvise with this and actually bring it to life, the characters and the situations, to apply it to our own life, and by using the rules of improvisation, build something? And what I've discovered with that, and other people have as well, I'm by no means the only person doing this kind of work, but what we found is that it really does make these texts and these characters and these situations become alive and vibrant and relatable to us. And it's also a really good way to build warm feelings and ensemble, because it's part of the creative spirit. And what are we about if we're not trying to tap into that great creative spirit that unites us all? We join here tonight to worship a creator, to express our gratitude for being part of that creation, to celebrate that creation. I have found that there are very few ways that connect us to that, rather than to collaborate with our fellow creatures of that creator to engage in works of new forms of creation. It is a blessing to be present with you here this evening, and I thank you for welcoming me in and giving me this opportunity, and I hope we'll be able to play a little bit tomorrow, and Shabbat Shalom. That's all I got for you.
Rabbi Siger will be with our youth group tonight, and those of you who wish you were still in youth group, he will be doing a Torah improv at 11:30. Of course, we have our Torah study regular group at 9. We have a drum circle at 10:30. We have Torah improv at 11:30, and I'm ashamed to admit we were going to have bagels at 12:30, but now we're going to have rugula, because they're going to associate Rabbi Siger, rugula, so I'm going to make sure somehow in Fort Worth we find rugula. You also gave an intro somewhere, and then to Aleinu. We rise on page 586. We stand before the open ark for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol v'tikdula liyoser breshit shelo asanu k'lei ha'aratzot ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המנה. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Seated for one moment, because it is our custom to ask you to sit, so that in a moment we can ask you to rise again. And the reason is because we give those who are in mourning a chance to rise, or remembering from prior years, a chance to rise for those that they remember and then we all rise to show our support. So if you hear the name of one who has passed away in this 30-day period of mourning known as Shloshim, or if you're observing the art site, the anniversaries of their death this Shabbat, when you hear their name, you can rise. We mentioned the recent deaths of Hubert Chase, Mark Torrig, Jonathan Siger, Florian Schwartz, and Jonathan Jacobson. And we mention also the yard sites, the anniversaries of their deaths, of Julia Meyer Benkoff, S.J. Bloom, Estelle R. Blotner, Naomi Karb Bronstein, Nathan Buchstab, Sarah Lee Carr, Belle Silverman Cohen, Sylvia Cohen, Lillian Echt Cohen, Lena Factor, Adolph Y. Furstenfeld, Deborah Furstenfeld Mark, Bill Goldberg, David William Gross, Gloria Hoffman, Kenneth Klein, Martin Klein, Miriam Mimi Klotz, Emmanuel Kramer, Mark Cooperman, Mary Cooperman, Hilda Lesnick, Goldie Litwin, Max Levin, Lee Luftman, Helen Newman Myers, Seth Mitchell, R.D. Moses, Nettie Endelmeyer, Alvin Polsky, Alvin Rosenblum, Annette Rosenthal, Jimmy Rosenthal, Ben Sandler, Seymour Schloss, Eugenia Seligman, Bela Simon, Rosabelle Litwin Tan, Reuben Taylor, Patricia Utrup, Frida Wender, Mort Werner, Jack Wolf. As we remember them and the many who lie in unmarked graves, with none to remember them but us, we rise to show support. We turn to page 598. We join with the words of the mourners' Kaddish.
Yitkadav yitkadash shmei Rabbah, melmad yirach urtei ve'anlich malchutei, v'chayachon u'vyomechon v'chay dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala uzman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam amlei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitzba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'rechu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'imiram v'almad v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mrova, Huya aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing, now and always. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. Following our closing song, we say the blessing for wine and bread, motzi, and kiddush here. For those of you who are our guests, for Jews, it's just wine and bread. It's just, we're glad bread is good. We like it. It's sweet, so feel free to join in. Anybody can do it. And then, of course, there are, I don't really know what's the Oneg Shabbat, but I'm sure it's wonderful. There's usually guacamole. It's a Beth-El tradition. I'm sure there'll be lots of other cookies and wonderful treats as well. And stick around. And tonight, if you have any questions about the service, I don't know, she might have gone out for a moment. Mimi will answer all your questions. She went out for a moment. But we also have Dr. Michael Ross, and we also have Monica. We have lots of other people. Our closing song can be found once again inside the supplement, Kehila Kadosha, the tune and the words by Dan Nichols. We all stand here today ready to receive Torah. And thank you to our 50 youth group. Please rise for our closing song.
It's here. All right.
I can see. Yeah.
We're doing.
If you are a temp, then wear Netzavim. We stand here today and remember the dream. If you are a temp, then wear Nitzavim. We stand here today and remember the dream. Kehila, Kedosha, Kehila, Kedosha, Kehila, Kedosha, Kehila, Kedosha, Lai, 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 Lai,
Nitzavim. We stand here today and remember the dream. If you are a 10, then we're Nitzavim. We stand here today and remember the dream. Kehila, Kedosha, Kehila, Kedosha, Kehila, Kedosha, Kehila, Kedosha.
All right. So, the blessing over wine, we're actually going to do just the brief one tonight. You know what I'm going to give Mr. Rabbi Siger? We were with him for dinner. He took a sip. He went, oh, I thought it was Manish Shabbos. It wasn't. So I feel like I owe him that. No, there we go. And everybody else, we've juiced. Go ahead. If anybody else wants to come up, either was the youth group or hasn't gone yet over their bar mitzvah. No. But come on up. Or whoever else. No. Okay, good. You had your chance. We're going to join together. For in 6 days God created the heaven and earth. On the 7th day rested from the work of creation. So we join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei bari hagafen. And we join in the blessing over bread. I don't know. Is this a sin?
That's not Manish Shabbos either.
Is this it?
No.
No, this is the bread. No, this is the bread. No, I meant, is this Cindy's bread?
Yeah.
Cindy been looking for a bread. Yeah, Cindy Simon special. You can have some. We all join together. But first, we're going to put our hands on it. Great sign of faith. Everybody grab on. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom.
It's actually a lovely Shiraz.
You sounded like Simon.
Yeah, it freaked me
It was
out.
Jonathan Jacobson.